I am really pleased and honored to be here this afternoon. I always look forward to returning to Morningside Heights. I love this neighborhood. I was so excited to come up to Morningside Heights to be your keynote speaker today. Your administration offered me a car. I refused. I wanted to take the #1 train. But I was so overwhelmed with thoughts about what I'd say to you today, I got on the downtown train instead of the uptown train. I was once terrified of public speaking. I could not imagine ever speaking before an audience this size, let alone sing to an audience this size. I overcome my fear of speaking from the Harlan Fistone Moot Court competition, my second year. And from there, the U.S. Attorney's Office, where I learned to try cases, and on. Now, I want to say something that I wrote about 30 minutes ago. I want to address head-on an issue that I know exists among you graduates. I am aware that some graduates here object to me as your keynote speaker, because for 3 years, under President Obama, when I was Secretary of Homeland Security, I was responsible for the enforcement and administration of our immigration laws. You are expressing yourselves by turning your backs on me. This is your right and your privilege in this great country. I respect that, though there are those in power today who do not. Indeed, I admire your conviction and encourage it in my own children, your age. I offered to meet with you before this program to discuss your concerns. You declined. Had I had a chance to talk with you, I would have explained that in the last 3 years of President Obama's administration, while I was secretary, the number of deportations from our country went down significantly as I instructed ICE to focus on deporting convicted criminals for the sake of public safety, a policy that this administration has chosen to abandon in favor of tearing families apart. More generally, as you become a lawyer and possibly a judge or another kind of public servant, you will find that public policy and government decision-making is complex and is rarely unidimensional. There is rarely an opportunity to act solely on your personal moral convictions. In my private career as a lawyer, I've had the opportunity to represent a Pakistani who's seeking asylum in this country. I had the opportunity to represent mentally ill homeless people in a pro bono lawsuit brought against the state of New York. In my official capacity in my career, I have spent hundreds of hours in South Texas on the border with 9- and 10-year-old children to ensure that the Border Patrol took adequate care of them. In my public official capacity, I also had the responsibility for 4 years of giving the legal sign-off for drone strikes and targeted lethal force to make our homeland safer. As you cross this stage this evening, some of you may decline to shake my hand. That is your right, but I will extend my hand to every one of you to congratulate you on graduating on this great law school. Now I'd like to speak to you not as a former Secretary of Homeland Security, not as a former government official, but as a member of the great profession you're about to join, and as a concerned private citizen. The administration in which I served was not perfect. We had our share of mistakes and setbacks. But like many Americans, I watch with growing despair and alarm at the standards of behavior, decency, and ethics among our nation's political leaders that spiral downward. New lows are reached on an almost weekly basis. In Washington today, false statements, leaks, corruption, betrayal, self-absorption, and allegations of sexual misconduct have become commonplace. Our president routinely denigrates the institutions of his own government. Politicians now believe that extreme and offensive positions are the way to win votes. Politics has become the ends and not the means. Even more depressing, a significant and increasing percentage of the American people now accept this of their political leaders. We are watching our government descend into a reality TV show. This may be good for ratings, but it is destroying government of, by, and for the people. What can we do? What must we do? Well, as my late law partner Ted Sorensen used to say, democracies are self-correcting. If you don't like what we have now, then there's always the next election. But in the meantime, in the face of this national spectacle, those of us in the legal profession must take care that a similar downward spiral in standards does not happen to us. Graduates, the reality is that conduct engaged in today by our nation's political leaders is not acceptable for you. Therefore, as you enter the legal profession, you must rededicate yourselves to the following. First, your word is your bond. Do not give your word unless you know you can deliver on that which you have promised. Adherence to a promise breeds trust, and trust is the most valuable currency you own in our profession. Second, there must be no compromise in our demands for truth and accuracy. There is no fake news. There are no alternative facts. Those phrases are non sequiturs and cannot be allowed to settle into our vocabulary. Third, in the midst of the current leaks of classified and non-public information from our government, unprecedented in their pace and severity, we must rededicate ourselves to the sanctity of the attorney-client privilege and the protection of client confidences. These are things that belong to the client and not to you. Next, rededicate yourselves to treating others with respect. Treat others, superiors and subordinates, men and women, associates, as you would be treated. Never forget what it was like to be the scared first-year law student, the new kid in the dorm, the new clerk in the judicial chambers, or the new first-year associate in the law firm, and how you were treated then. Recall those who took the time to mentor you and treat you with courtesy and patience, and on the other hand, those who took the opportunity to put you down to build themselves up. Know that an apology is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of strength. Tolerate and celebrate the diversity of this nation. Respect those who are different and encourage others to do the same. Intolerance of those who are different reflects a narrow mind and a small heart. Finally, remember that those who know history learn from it. Those who don't know the mistakes of history are bound to repeat them. Those who know history know that our country is great and never stopped being great for its capacity to grow, self-correct, accept monumental change, unimaginable progress, and to continually proceed toward a more perfect union. If you are, like me, a little down on the current state of our democracy, take the long view. If there is one thing you remember about this speech, I hope it is this. 36 years ago, the speaker at this event was the civil rights leader, Andrew Young. Ambassador Young said something to the Columbia Law class of 1982 that I will never forget and repeat at every commencement or graduation speech I give. Work hard, take chances, experience this great country, and you will witness and accomplish things you never thought you would see in your lifetime. How do I know this? Because looking back, I now know that at the moment Ambassador Young said that, there was another young black man with an unusual African first name who walked this campus at that time and was enrolled in this university at that time, who I did not know at that time, who would go on to be President of the United States, and asked me to serve in his cabinet. That was, for me, something then that was inconceivable, something that I did not expect to see in my lifetime. Take the long view, and you will know to be optimistic about our great country, like the threat of rain this morning at 8 o'clock, which opened up to blue sky this evening. Consider my father, J. Vincent Johnson, who is now 87 years old. In 1949, he was a Columbia College freshman who lived in that dorm right over there, which used to be Livingston Hall. He rode a segregated train from Nashville, Tennessee to get here. 1949 was also the year that his father, my grandfather, the sociologist Charles S. Johnson, had to testify before the House Un-American Activities Committee to deny he was a member of the Communist Party and defend the patriotism of African Americans. My father has now lived long enough to see his own son testify before Congress about what he is doing to defend the homeland. Despite the gloom and doom about the current state of our politics, I urge all of you to avoid golden handcuffs and consider at some point in your career, in one form or another, serving the public interest. I congratulate all of you in this class headed to big law, including the 10 of you who are about to become my colleagues at Paul Weiss. I've been in public service for a third of my career and private law practice for 2/3. I will tell you that though the salary of a cabinet officer charged with the responsibility of protecting the homeland is less than that of a first-year associate, my public service has been by far the most gratifying part of my career. No matter what else I do for the remainder of my private life, my public service will be the first paragraph of my obituary. It occupies the entirety of the scrapbook that I will one day pass to my kids. You are graduating from one of the best law schools in this country. Whether it's your country, your state, your city, your community, your church, or immigrants at the border, there are people who need you. Within every one of us is a basic God-given desire to serve and help others. Work to fulfill that desire, and you will draw enormous satisfaction in the practice of your profession. Congratulations.